Chuck, something that I'm wondering about is what's coming next for you. You had such a legendary career as an educator, as a researcher with big institutions like the Draper Natural History Museum. You've done so much. I can't really picture you slowing down. What's next?
You know, I thought I would slow down a little bit after retirement, but it doesn't seem to be working out for me that way. I think I'm happier now than I've been throughout my career because, you know, I'm free from a lot of the constraints that administrative duties take, and as much as I enjoyed doing those as well, of course. But my institution, the Draper Natural History Museum at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, supported me in this work for 13 years, the last 13 years. There are universities that have asked me to consider continuing under their auspices and support. So I suspect that we'll continue with the Golden Eagle work to some extent here, at least some version of it, and maybe even expand some of the ideas here, some of the questions that we have related to the sagebrush steppe ecosystem dynamics. That's a mouthful, but we're really interested in these relationships between the land, different wildlife species, and of course among the wildlife species.
Something that I personally would like to know, I mean, obviously you've got scientific credentials, you know, of the highest order, but you bring so much passion to the work as well, and I just wonder what it's like for you. You're doing this study and there's a young bird, a young eagle in a nest that you've been following, and they don't all make it. And how does that affect you when one of these subject birds doesn't make it?
You know, it's a grieving process. It really is. You become, if you're passionate about what you're doing, and I don't know any scientist, any wildlife scientist that doesn't care for the animals they're studying. Now, that doesn't mean we interfere. It doesn't mean that we jump in and change things for them. It doesn't mean that that may not even enter into our data. It's just numbers. This one lived and this one died. But inside, we feel that, we do. We mourn it for a number of reasons. One, the individual itself. The individual does count. And we hate to see that. We hurt to see that. But the bigger picture is it also takes away from that population. So yeah, we're human. At the end of the day, science is a human endeavor. When I first came to the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, which was when I first got here strictly a humanities-based institution, and many of the board members asked, well, you're a scientist, you're going to bring science in here with the humanities? And I said, never forget that science is a human-based activity. The biggest threat of all, the biggest change of all, really, is climate change, the one we really haven't talked about that much here. All you have to do is look around here at the smoke that we're seeing now. This is in the middle of July, and this has become the average day from mid-July through mid-September here in Wyoming, even in this part of Wyoming, where we have smoky, hazy skies. You think you're living in Los Angeles sometimes because of the wildfires that are driven by drought and warmer conditions that are coming with climate change.
You know, we're looking around at these huge landscapes here, and I'm thinking about the fact that even though there are a lot of golden eagles on public land, so much of the great habitat here is on private ranches, and I would think they would be really important for conservation of these eagles.
Yeah, you know, public lands are critical, absolutely critical, and we can't lose the public lands, not just for eagles, but for wildlife in general, for recreation, for so many different purposes. No substitute for the public lands, but public lands, especially with these wide-ranging species like golden eagles or grizzly bears, for example, or elk or pronghorn, these public lands alone can neither contain nor sustain them all by themselves. So they're really dependent on private lands like this around us here, these ranch lands. We are so indebted to private landowners who keep and manage their landscape in a way that suits them for their cattle or sheep or whatever, but also provides just invaluable habitat for wildlife. And there are corridors between these private and public lands that are also critical. So, Ken, I have a question for you. You've had the opportunity now in the last couple of years off and on, and especially this week, to spend some time out here in the Bighorn Basin, not just with the eagles, but really with the wildlife and this environment. What are your impressions of it?
Well, I think it's really a magnificent country. I mean, I'd been in other parts of Wyoming. I've traveled around the West a lot, but I love the sage country. Big sagebrush is one of the greatest plants in the world, and I just love this ecosystem. And getting to spend time out here has been a real privilege. It's not the sort of, it might not be the sort of place that people would immediately recognize as like, you know, a scenic wonder, but it really is once you get into it. It's a wonderful landscape. For me, it's been one of the great surprises of my life. I came to Wyoming and initially I thought, well, I'll be spending a lot of time in the mountains on the Yellowstone Plateau, working there. And I just fell in love with this area. Once I did some work, we were developing the exhibits and I was visiting all the biomes in the area. And I said, why do we not know about this more, and why is it undervalued by most people? I've had folks tell me that they think it's a wasteland out here. What are we doing? And it's amazing. There's as much wilderness in a sense here as you'll find anywhere in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And we can't forget, it is one of the most imperiled ecosystems on the face of the earth. And this is the iconic western ecosystem. So Ken, you had a chance this week to get up close and personal with some of the eagles that we were banding. What was that experience like for you? That was really inspiring. I mean, I love golden eagles. I spent a lot of time watching them at a distance, and they're magnificent when they're soaring around, but being close like that is a whole different perspective. And just seeing these young birds, they're like princes and princesses that are ready to go out and be the kings and queens of the air. And just, the birds were impressive, but it was also impressive to see just the process. You have so much experience with banding these birds, and it was just so obvious, the confidence of handling them, and it was like the birds could feel it as well. Just the rapport between you and the eagles was really an impressive thing to watch.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Golden eagles rule the sky. Beautiful and intelligent, fierce and protective. They are monarchs of the American West. For 13 field seasons, one extraordinary man has ranged through the rugged, complex landscape of the Bighorn Basin. He has witnessed the changes the eagles are facing and has discovered some keys to their survival here.